Oh Say Can You Read was another lesson plan I built in cooperation with Dan Grayberg and Eileen Giardino. This lesson plan was actually assigned to us by our co-op, Derek Cressman, and he challenged us to take a Star Spangled Banner lesson, which he did not like, but had used in as part because it was part of the school's curriculum, as a note reading exercise, and to transform it into something more musical. Um, so we played around with a couple different approaches to it, and we decided that we wanted to incorporate the lesson into a larger lesson on how anthems like the Star Spangled Banner can express ideas of community, society, and socio-political uh, relationships that between the two. Um, so we use the Star Spangled Banner in more of an analytical sense than in a let's go perform the Star Spangled Banner sense. Um, in the initial parts of the lesson, we analyzed the words of the Star Spangled Banner, defining terms that were unfamiliar like ramparts or gallantly, and also discussing the meaning of the poem, including its historical context, um, as well as the tune's historical context. Um, we further went on in a discussion with the class um, after they created their own words for an anthem to represent themselves as a class. We talked about how the music fit those terms and enhanced the words, including melodic shape and contour, word stress and rhythm stress, um, inflection, like rising pitches at the ends of questions versus declarative statements, not doing that. And we concluded the lesson with the students in small groups, each taking their own verse and composing a melody for it, and then trying to piece it together into one cohesive unit by the end of the week. We had some problems with this lesson. This seventh grade class, understandably so, is not like the eighth grade class. They are a little bit more segmented. They've only been together for maybe 2 weeks, so they don't really view themselves as a class. They also it's very clicky. There's a designated bad boy role. There's obviously a role of the outcasted nerd. Very stereotypical middle school roles that you may see on a TV sitcom. They're all kind of in this class. So there's a very interesting paradigm in this clip of the second day, the discussion about the music. Um, three of the young boys in the or young gentlemen in the class are not present. They came in late, and the shift in dynamics of the group was just unbelievable. We sat them on the floor in order to make it less of a formal setting, so perhaps that they'd be more comfortable dialoguing with us, and that seemed to work. But as soon as these three gentlemen came back into the class when they broke into groups, it reverted back to what it was the first day, which was lots of silliness, lots of jokes, not really staying on topic. Everyone was drawing their attention to the three boys rather than what they were doing or to people in their own group, which was distracting and caused a lot of trouble the first day. Um, we ended up changing the lesson halfway through from our original plan, which has been revised in the lesson plan posted below. Originally, we were going to try to do one whole class cohesive anthem, but because this group did not see themselves as a class, what ended up happening was each group created their own verse, and there was one chorus for the anthem, using the Orff instruments composed for their verse, and then we tried to combine the verses together at the end. Um, I think the lesson did meet most of its goals. It certainly met its objectives, and I believe the students, based off of their responses in class, would be able to tell you to what extent an anthem reflects our socio-political and aspects of community, um, aspects of our society, and how an anthem can represent that and be born from that. Um, However, I think that our instruction of the lesson could have gone a little bit more smooth gone smoother if perhaps we handled the distraction of the three gentlemen a little bit better. Another idea that passed my mind while doing the lesson is, if you notice during the discussion, there are moments of gaps in the dialogue, and I think this was partially due to unclear questions, or perhaps more importantly, an uncomfortableness of the students answering our questions, not knowing exactly what we were expecting. They didn't have a standardized rubric, a standardized test to say, we're expecting you to fill out bubble B. And I think they're uncomfortable doing that at this point. One way we could have perhaps approached that differently was to segment the group into smaller groups. However, I think all three of us were a little bit against that in this instance because this group is so chatty and because they can become distracted so easily. And also because several of them do not get along whatsoever. They get along about as good as oil and water. Derek has this group sitting in alphabetical order is to avoid that problem in the first place. So we were hesitant about splitting them into groups. Even when they're split into groups to work on the verses, they needed constant supervision from one of the four of us in order to continue to get the work done. We had groups that were trying to make these Faustian deals that they would do the assignment if we did this, if we did that, and so I think that it was a little bit dangerous doing that in this context, but because we had so many people, it was a viable option.
But the actual tune in the Star Spangled Banner, what about the music? Maybe about it.
It makes it more like dramatic.
Makes it more dramatic? Okay.
Why do you say that?
I love just
It seems dramatic. What about it? Like, is it heavy? Like, is it very what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of like
Militant?
yeah, militant. Where it's like bum 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 bum.
the symbols.
Symbols. Yeah, there we go.
That's a good point. We just sang it with just our voices, but normally you hear cymbals, percussion with it. You hear it starts with sometimes a snare drum roll. So you do have that sense of militantness to it.
Doesn't it like lower, like softer? And then it gets higher.
Yeah.
And then it gets louder.
Okay, what
And then it
middle
gets
part are you
louder.
talking about?
Like it's when it says like the bombs or something or whatever. The rap is like lower. Right, so you're saying it kind of sounds like an explosion. But how did you have that illusion? So you're thinking of the melody, right? Okay, so you're saying melody goes up, on Thursday, it went up. So you're talking about the shape of the phrase or the contour of the phrase.
That's very good. That's what we're looking for. So, can I repeat what you said? Just, in case people were listening. Okay, so yeah, so the shape of the melody has to do with the words you're talking about. In that instance, we're talking about bombs bursting and rockets red glare. So if you imagine rockets going off like a firework, they usually rise, right? Because they don't, we got a problem on our hands. So the melody actually goes up at that point. That's what we call text painting. So the easy way to remember that is you're painting a picture with the words and using the notes. What else? Think about the same lines that Cassie was singing. Something along the same lines, maybe with a different verse or a different chorus.
What was the question?
Okay. One of those mornings. Think about along the same lines that Cassie was thinking with the shape of the melody and how that affects the